I definitely remember the first time my dad talked to me about ALS and his decision to do this work. It was a really big deal, talking about his passion around finding a cure.
I was really struck by him choosing to dedicate his life to something so devastating, and I was also so inspired by all of his goals that he had for the people living with ALS and their families.
At the time, I was the chair of the board, and we were looking for a new CEO. And when I read Fred's resume, I said he can have the job.
We had a free space on Hollywood Boulevard, and we had a small board. We were a little above bake sale mentality. Our money all went to a physical therapist who ran an equipment loan pool for persons with ALS out of her garage.
When my husband and I started our journey, back when we were in our 20s, which was in the 70s, there was nothing. They gave us no hope. And Fred Fisher really brought compassion that he has shown for all these families, all these patients.
Fred came to the Bay Area when we were merging the chapters of Northern and Southern California. And we spent several hours together, along with Kathleen Rasmussen, and being convinced that Fred was the right one to lead the combined chapters. And it's turned out to be an absolute home run.
The Greater Bay Area chapter, Executive Director Linda DeMello introduced us all to Fred, who was the Executive Director in Los Angeles, to talk about the prospect of merging the two chapters into one.
My husband, Jim Barber, and Fred Fisher and Dean Rasmussen worked hand in hand to put together the California ALS Research Summit.
The very first time I met Fred at the ALS Walk in Monterey, that was the meeting right there that set everything in motion. Sharing my story with him, the struggles that we had in getting the proper services in Hawaii, especially on the outer islands, and our struggle in taking care of bully. And at the end of that, he said to me, look, hey, are you up for the challenge? And I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Yeah.
The minute I met Fred, it just felt as if there was an opportunity for me to give back all that we have been given. He sparked a feeling that there is something we can do to help people living with ALS and their families.
Fred pulls you in as a community leader, as a nonprofit leader, somebody that speaks with such confidence and such acute awareness of what's going on.
He's a values-based CEO. He's driven by purpose and mission. And I've learned a lot from him as to how to be a servant CEO, somebody who serves an organization, a purpose larger than oneself.
His passion is unrivaled, and his commitment to the cause of ALS is greater than anybody I've ever met.
You could just tell by the way, he talked, that he wasn't just a CEO up there just checking off the boxes.
I was on the East Coast when the Ice Bucket Challenge took off, and I was coming home to LA and was adamant that we do it as a family.
When Rebecca and I were little kids and we didn't want to get up for school in the morning, my dad had a habit of bringing a very cold washcloth with water and trickling water over our faces to get us to jump out of bed in the morning.
One, two, three.
Never give up! He's just done tremendous things for this organization. Just so smart, so powerful, and just so committed.
The advocacy work that I was fortunate to do with Fred, and that is going to Washington, D.C., being able to meet our congressmen, being able to help push these critical bills through was just phenomenal.
A couple of things that Fred and I worked on. First was increasing the number of care managers for outreach to people with ALS. And it was a stretch goal, and Fred would shake his head at this crazy Greek who kept asking them to raise more money. But he did, and we succeeded.
seeking our independence. That was a long process. And I remember that I was initially had some skepticism. It took me about a month into being the chair when I realized that we were going to have to start and see through for the benefit of our organization and the people that it serves.
It's hard to describe.
Deeply knowledgeable.
It'd have to be tenacious, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to come up with that word.
Tenacious.
How do I say this? Tenaciously passionate?
He is a global thinker.
I think he's smart. I think he's trustworthy. And I think he's funny.
Brilliant.
Inspirational. Whenever Fred talks, people listen.
Determined. He was so determined to do what he felt was right.
He is one of the hardest working and focused individuals I've ever met.
Jim would probably say he would need to be corralled now and again.
He's passionate, persistent, giving, caring.
And he's also really fun to tease.
The best.
Thank you for everything that you do. You bring so much light into this world, and what you do matters.
A great mentor, and someone who we could have conversations about. My wife, who has had ALS for now 23 years.
I am truly grateful and somewhat amazed by how much I learned from working with Fred.
Today, I mean, it's light years ahead in advancement, and I got to give Fred the credit for leading us through all of that.
I'm just grateful to you, Fred. I'm grateful for your commitment, for your drive, for being visionary, for listening to me.
I can't tell you the number of times that you responded to Saturday night texts from me when I ran across someone who needed help. The responsiveness, and you should just be ecstatic about both the legacy you're leaving behind and the impact you made, more importantly, on tens of thousands of people, probably up to 100,000 people if you look at families that you've been involved with in your 20 plus years.
You helped us grow up.
You have always told me that leaders are at all levels. You are so deserving of this award, and I'm so glad we can all celebrate you.
You have always told me to follow my passions and that the rest will follow, and you've embodied that through your career. We are all so lucky to have you.
Fred Fisher, you will always be the heart of our ALS network. Thank you.